Record.
Hello.
Well, hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm good. I think we're good now. Sorry about that. We're a little short-handed this morning, but that's okay. How's everybody? How are you doing, Trey?
Not too bad, Joe. It's a good Sunday morning. Glad to be here. I hope everybody's out there joining us as well.
I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties. That's okay. So let's see. Let's make sure I'm live on Facebook before we talk too much more. It says in live video. So we should be live on Facebook now. Sorry about that. Wow. A little crazy. If you're here with us, if you're live and you can hear us, okay, let us know. We're running a skeleton crew in the booth today, but we're gonna get the job done. So hey, welcome to Stonebrooke.Live. My name is Joe.
Hey, I'm Trey.
We're here to hang out with you a little bit. I want to mention before we talk too much, the kids stream, facebook.com/SBKids is going live at 10:35. So grab your kid, grab a device, your cell phone, iPad, whatever. Get them set up on YouTube. It's a really easy place. And did you know this? Stonebrooke Kids has a Twitch account.
Really? I did not know that. I really didn't.
A legit Twitch account where he, like Caleb, plays Fortnite and stuff.
Okay. All right.
And at the last stream, somebody from Stonebrooke Kids actually got online and played with him. It just blew my mind.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's what it's all about. It's all about community and engaging with each other, especially during these times of COVID and the pandemic and all. We need to stay connected. We have to stay connected. I mean, that's what it's all about. Community.
Absolutely. We got a couple people in chat. Marty Matthews is here. Marty, good to see you as always. Every Sunday, without fail, you are here, one of the first to comment. You need a top fan badge. I don't know. Can we award those top fan badges?
I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, it has to be some stipulations, of course.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, we got a couple other people. Montisha Dennis, good morning from Virginia. Wow. And Troy Davis is here as well.
Troy, what's up, man?
Good morning.
Good to see you on there this morning.
So we have a couple of things we're going to talk about. What was on our list of things?
Well, one of the things we want to talk about was definitely Thanksgiving. What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? What are you guys eating? What are your favorite foods? What do you plan on cooking? Do you guys plan on doing any traveling this Thanksgiving holiday season?
Yeah.
And if you are, and if you are, what precautions are you taking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you taking any precautions?
Are you taking precautions?
Absolutely.
Like that's right now. We have another outbreak happening. So I know that even recently, this last week, I've had to change some of my own personal habits again,
right,
to have like an extra layer of safety there. So I'm really interested to see what happens after holiday weekend. So be good. Wash those hands. Wear that mask when you're in public.
20 seconds.
Yeah, that is absolutely. Good morning from the cold Minnesota. Oh my gosh. It's a little chilly here. It was warm this week, but it also almost snowed yesterday. I don't know. Welcome to Missouri. But anyway, we've got some more things to talk about. What else we got, Trey?
Well, the devil.
The devil. El Diablo.
The devil.
Satanus.
Always active. What does the devil look like to you?
Yeah.
What does the devil look like to you? I mean, is it a little red guy with horns, or what does the devil look like to you? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, for real. Comment below. That's our theme this week, if you will. Mark is going to come here short in a few minutes and answer a question that came in. And the question was basically that, is the devil real? Like
right.
For me, I have always had a strong belief and a strong fear in what we call the devil or Satan. As a child even, I remember feeling like there was some part of me that always
right.
dictated by the darkness. So I don't know, but traditionally, little demon with horns, pitchfork. When somebody says the devil to you, or whenever you think, like, picture Satan, what do they look like?
A little red guy with horns, a tail with a little arrow on it, with a little tip on the end of it. Yeah, that's what the devil has always. That's what it's always portrayed to me. But it's more of a. In all reality, it's more of a feeling to me.
A feeling.
Yeah. It's almost like you get really uncomfortable. It's almost like I'd even call it a evil type feeling.
Just like a darkness?
It is absolutely a darkness that just comes over you. It covers almost your whole world.
So not necessarily an entity, but more or less like an energy.
That's exactly
like a bad.
Exactly. That's
vibes.
more or less what I feel when I think about the devil.
Yeah.
Not being able to get out of the bed in the morning, and I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
I love getting up in the morning. Even on days that I don't work, my wife kind of looks over at me and give me this evil grin. But yeah, even when I can't get out of the bed in the morning, I can equate. I can even equate that to being dark.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, where does it come from? You know,
Absolutely.
A lot of us are taught about good. With good comes evil. I mean, that's a huge part of it. Marty, just saw a comment real quick from Marty. I'm traveling from house to house, picking up my Thanksgiving dinner. I can see that. Marty, are you basically setting up like a drive-through with your family where they can just throw mashed potatoes and turkey into your open window? Or are you bringing the food? Are you cooking? That's a question. Thanksgiving, we never take enough time to give thanks to the people that get their hands dirty.
Absolutely.
People carving that bird, going through all this trouble just so they can hang out with family they don't really want to see and make sure they're fed because they love them. And that's what we do on Thanksgiving.
Thank your chefs.
Yes.
Give them a tip. Why not? Maybe it's an extra beer or extra drumstick, but hey, tip your chef this Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I can guarantee if I left like a $5 on my mom's table, she'd freak out. They never expect it.
I believe that.
Good. I'm glad you're not cooking, Marty. Going to see my grandparents. Cool. Emily would agree. Montisha's here. Montisha, you're actually a top fan. Wow. We actually have those. So as you can see on the screen, let's see, like below us right here, there's a countdown that's been going on for a while. We just wanted to chat a little bit this morning. Not in any rush. It's the holiday season. People are traveling right now. You may be on the road listening to this. Don't be watching if you're driving. But if you're just listening and hanging out with us this morning, we just wanted to set everything up for a chill day. It's a little rainy. It's a little nasty. It's a little cold. But that just means it's even better to go inside and warm up.
But it's another day above ground. And you have
Truth.
to thank the Lord for that.
Truth. Awesome. Well, Mark is going to be here. We're going to come back at the very end and talk a little bit more, maybe about some of the stuff that Mark said, but we want to catch up with you in chat as well. Just a few more names. Timothy and Christina are here. Janice, good morning. Cooking small family dinner. I think that's the responsible thing, is to have a small family dinner. But anyway, y'all enjoy the stream. Mark is going to come answer a question. And then on top of that, if you have a question during the stream, feel free to comment below here on Facebook or YouTube. We want to connect with you and we want to follow up with you. Or you can text the anonymous line that will appear on the screen here shortly. So without any further ado, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will catch you here in about 25 minutes.
See you guys in a bit.
One of Jesus' favorite ways of teaching was to ask questions. People were always asking him questions. Some of them were trying to trick him, trap him in his words, but especially his closest followers, after Jesus would share a message, they always had questions, basically saying, We have no idea what you were talking about. Can you explain that? One of our favorite things to do here at Stonebrook is to discuss questions that you may have. And so, in order to make this a conversation, we have a text number that you can ask any question you want. You can text to 415 SB Rocks. It's anonymous. There's really nothing off limits. Anything to do with God, life, things you wonder about the Bible, religion in general, what you were taught in church, what you hated about church, what has always bothered you about the concept of God, something you've always wanted to know but were afraid to ask. This is the place to do that. We want to have this conversation. And what we're doing today, and what we'll be doing the next few weeks, is taking some time to discuss questions. Just 25 minutes. This is everything Mark knows about whatever question is asked in 25 minutes. Sometimes it may take longer than that, but that's the time we have. So let's jump in today. We had a question sent in that basically asked this. My question is, what is the biblical view of the devil? Is there actually a Satan figure, like what's taught by most churches? Thanks. I guess they're saying thanks for asking the question, not thank you for the devil. But that's a really great question. If you grew up in church, depending on your background, what part of the country, what denomination you were involved in, you may have heard more about the devil than you heard about God. And for some Christians, it's just assumed that there's some type of underworld figure that we call Satan. And for some people, he looks like, and I'm not a very good artist, but they have the drawing of Satan maybe with pointy ears, and he has a long tail with a fork, and this is, I'm a terrible artist. Let's make Satan, I guess he's not very happy. And he has a pitchfork for some reason. I don't know, he's poking people or he's pitching hay. I'm not sure what's going on there. And he's perhaps in hell. This is fire I'm drawing here. And they picture Satan as the ruler of some sort of underworld place in hell, and departed souls are here, and he is an overlord over them. And his job is to oppose everything that God does. And he sort of looks like this. This, by the way, is not in the Bible. So what we're going to do today, I've just written down as many scriptures as I could think of about it, and we'll run through those scriptures in the next 25 minutes and figure out what does the Bible say about this figure that we call the devil. Is he real? Well, we're going to start, like I always love to do, I love to start with, well, what did Jesus think? So everything that I believe about God, about the way the world works, spiritual world, natural world, I run through the filter of who Jesus is. And here's some things that some of his closest followers said. In Matthew, he tells the story of, this is at the beginning of when Jesus first sort of went public with his ministry. It says, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by there's our word, devil. It's a Greek word, diablos, which basically just means an adversary or an enemy. Someone who is opposing. It can mean an accuser, sometimes in a court setting, the person that is making the accusation, the plaintiff. But this also means the adversary. And in this case, it looks like, is this a person? Is this an entity? Is this a force? Not really sure. During that time, again, the devil came, said to Jesus, hey, if you're the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. We call this generally the temptation of Christ in the wilderness. Then the next verse, then the devil took him to the holy city, Jerusalem, to the highest point of the temple. Another verse says, next, the devil took him to the peak of a very high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. Jesus, in between all these verses, and I'm skipping some verses, he says various things in response to what this character or this force, we don't really know, he responds to him. But then this next verse, it seems like from the text that we have in the English Bible, that Jesus is personifying this enemy. He uses a personal pronoun, it looks like, get out of here, Satan. Jesus told him, for the scriptures say, and then he quotes what the scripture says in the next verse, says, then the devil went away, and angels came and took care of Jesus. So it seems like that Matthew's trying to tell us that there is some sort of force for bad, and then here he mentions angels. So we have this contrast of the devil or Satan, and we know from reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are the accounts of Jesus' life, that Jesus was always casting out what these writers call demons. And so the question is, are these a real thing? What are they? Where did they come from? It seems that Jesus thinks that there's a sort of a spirit world, that there's more to the world than what we can actually see, feel, touch, taste, hear, that there are forces at work. And this is actually an ancient idea, but it really came to prominence. And I'm trying to figure out during this short period that I have just how deeply to go into this, during what theologians call the Second Temple period, especially a couple centuries before Jesus. The idea that perhaps there are these entities that are opposing the will and plan of God really became more and more prominent, and really sort of came into their biggest prominence when Jesus was here on the earth, and he was constantly seeming to face these entities that were wreaking havoc. In fact, one of Jesus' closest friends, Peter, after Jesus died and rose from the dead, in talking about him, said that Jesus went about doing good and healing everyone that was oppressed by the devil. It seemed like that there was this force that was opposing who God is. And this is an ancient concept. I'm going to erase the devil here. Some of you are going, yay, he's erasing the devil. But it goes back to an ancient concept where people believed, first of all, that the earth was flat. And I'm sorry if you're out there and you're a flat earther. This is an ancient concept. The earth's not flat. I'm sorry to break your bubble. But speaking of bubbles, they believed that the earth was flat and it had pillars. In fact, the Bible talks about pillars here. And that underneath this flat earth, there was what they called Sheol. And Sheol was the place of departed spirits. It's where, if you were dead, that's where you went to live. And so that there was this underworld where everybody that was dead was underneath the physical earth. Now, they believed over this flat earth, sort of like a snow globe, there was this dome. And on the earth there was water. I don't have a blue, I have purple. On the earth there's water down here. But they believed that there was water here, and there was also water up here. Because they looked at the ocean, ocean's blue. They looked at the sky is blue. Water, that must be water. So they believed that God had placed this dome over the earth. The King James Bible calls it a firmament. And that outside this dome, there were all kinds of creatures. There were sea creatures. I don't even know. That's a shark. I'm a terrible artist. But there were these beings. The Old Testament talks about a being called Leviathan. And God, even in the book of Job, supposedly is saying, Leviathan, I can get him out of the sea with a hook. Well, what he's trying to communicate to them is, if there are beings outside of here, I can take care of them. And they believed God had this dome, and there was a force or forces, and frankly, other gods that were trying to wreak havoc on the earth, but God was holding them at bay. And so, to the ancient people, it wasn't an individual, especially with a pitchfork and a pointed tail. It was various other lesser gods. And they believed that there were all these different forces. In fact, we get a picture of it in the very first story, the very first chapter in Genesis. Let's just look at that. I look at these things a lot. It says the serpent, we have a story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. It says the serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild animals the Lord God had made. And one day he asked the woman, did God really say this? And most of you know the story, that this serpent, this talking snake, tries to deceive Adam and Eve in the story. Now, for centuries and centuries, and most of you probably grew up, saying, well, that's the devil. That's Satan. But the story itself doesn't say that that's Satan. It simply says it's a talking serpent. So is that a representation of the devil? And where do we get that idea? We get that idea for one place is from the book of Revelation. In Revelation, there's John, who's one of Jesus' closest followers, is sharing a sort of this figurative vision, dreamlike thing that he's seen. And he talks about that great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan. He was thrown down to the earth with all his angels. Now, this is where it gets sort of weird, and it gets into this ancient idea of, okay, maybe Satan is an angel that used to be on God's side, and he mounted some sort of rebellion in heaven, and he was cast down to the earth. So that's one idea, and we'll pursue that. But I just want to show as many different ideas about what the Bible talks about this character known as Satan. The Apostle Paul, in talking about him in 1 Corinthians, says this: the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil. It's hidden only from people who are perishing. Then he goes on and says, Satan, who is the god of this world. Now see, ancient people, and especially the people of Israel, years and years and years before Jesus, people think that the people of Israel always just believed in one God. It's not true. They believed in a multitude of gods, as many ancient people did, that each area, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Moab, Edom, all the areas of different nations, different tribes around the nation of Israel, they had their own national God. The people of Israel simply believed their God, who they called Yahweh. We don't actually know what his name was. That's as close as we can get to what his name they may have called him. They believed Yahweh was the greatest of all the gods. Well, this idea is still hanging around a little bit with Paul, where he says, Satan is the God, little g, but he's another spiritual being that has some sort of power. And Paul seems to think that Satan is the God of this world, and he's blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They're unable to see the glorious light of the good news or the gospel. So Paul is saying there is this being that is opposing God's desire to share his message about who Jesus is. He's working against us. So Paul either thinks there's a force or an actual entity that has other beings maybe working for him that are arrayed against what God is doing. Jesus himself talks a little bit more about Satan. Right before he goes to the cross, he says to his close friend Peter, whose actual real name is Simon, he says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. He said Satan he's trying to get permission somehow. So that brings up the question, and you need to know this, we're not going to answer all the questions. You're probably going to have more questions at the end of what we talk about today than when it actually started. But that's one of the beauties of trying to get to know God. It's not about, well, let me get all the questions so I'm right about everything. It's the investigation. It's the pursuit. It's the having conversations with those who are believers and who aren't believers. It's in that community that we get to know him more. But here Jesus says there's this being that's wanting to come, and he uses a first century agrarian analogy by saying, just the way that you guys sift wheat and you shake it, Satan is about to shake you guys. And they were shaken when Jesus died on the cross. It totally shook their world. And Satan wanted to use that to keep them from believing. But Jesus is warning them ahead of time that, hey guys, it's not just about me. It's not just about God. There's some sort of force, maybe an actual entity, that is opposing what God wants to do in this world. But you can overcome him because God is greater and because of what I've done. The Apostle Paul, in Ephesians, a letter that he wrote to one of the churches that he started, he once again talks about the devil. He said, you used to live in sin just like the rest of the world, obeying the devil. And once again, this word really simply means the enemy or the adversary, but he uses sort of a personal way of describing the commander of the powers in the unseen world. So Paul seems to have an idea that there's things we can't see, and there are beings, powers. This word powers is the same word he would use of magistrates and mayors and governors, generals in the army, that this devil or Satan is somehow has ranks or a hierarchy of beings that work for him that are arrayed against what God is wanting to do. So I'm not sure what the next verse is. Oh, yeah. I just, last night I wrote down as many verses as I could possibly think of concerning this, is the devil a real being? Now there's an idea that that Satan used to be an angel in heaven, and it comes from several places in the Old Testament. And anytime you start to talk about Satan, a lot of Christians use this word interchangeably. Lucifer. And so a lot of Christians will say, Lucifer used to be an angel in heaven. He was created by God. A lot of people even propose that he was somehow led worship in heaven, but that he rebelled because of his pride. And they use some of these scriptures we're about to look at. So let's just run through these real quickly. In Ezekiel, it says, this is the message that came to me from the Lord. Son of man, that's who Ezekiel is talking about himself. Give the prince of Tyre. Tyre is a place on the western northern coast of modern-day Israel. Give the prince of Tyre this message from the sovereign Lord. In your great pride you claim, I am a god. I sit on a divine throne in the heart of the sea, but you are only a man. So Ezekiel is prophesying, talking from God to this prince or this royalty, a leader in this area, this kingdom, this city of Tyre. But then he goes on later and says, Son of man, supposedly God talking, sing this funeral song for the king of Tyre. Okay, we were talking to the prince of Tyre, says, you're only a man. Give him this message from the sovereign Lord. You were the model of perfection, full of wisdom and exquisite in beauty. He goes on and says, you were in Eden. Okay, this is getting weird. Eden, you mean way back in years, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago? The garden of God. Your clothing was adorned with every precious stone. Mentions all these beautiful stones. They were beautifully crafted for you, set in the finest gold. They were given to you on the day you were created. I ordained and anointed you as the mighty angelic guardian. Okay, so it seems that Ezekiel has switched over from talking about a person that's just a normal dude to some sort of angel, some sort of spiritual being. You had access to the holy mountain of God, walked among the stones of fire. You were blameless in all from the days that you were created until the day evil was found in you. Your rich commerce led you to violence, and you sinned, so I banished you in disgrace from the mountain of God. I expelled you, O mighty guardian, from your place among the stones of fire. Your heart was filled with pride. That's why a lot of people say pride was the original sin. Because of all your beauty, your wisdom was corrupted by your love of splendor. So I threw you to the ground and exposed you to the curious gaze of all the kings. Then he goes on and says multiple things, and just for the sake of time, we won't necessarily go to all that. But this is one reason that we get the idea. And my bottom line for this is going to be, I really don't know. I may need to do a podcast on this where I go into more detail. But let's go to that passage right there in Isaiah, another place where we get this idea that there was this being that was an angel created by God that rebelled and was cast out. Is Isaiah says, how are you fallen from heaven, O shining star? This is where we get the Hebrew word that we translate Lucifer, shining star. Fun fact, by the way, the book of Revelation, Jesus is referred to by the same word, Lucifer. I don't believe here in Isaiah that he's talking about some angelic being. And this is where it gets so interesting to me to have these discussions, because we need to not just be real shallow concerning our Bible knowledge and just say things to try to convince people when we don't have really solid foundational facts to stand on, because this is actually talking about a human being, the king of either Assyria or Babylon. This could either be Sennacherib or Nebuchadnezzar. This is Isaiah talking about this kingdom that has taken the people of Israel away to exile, and Isaiah is prophesying to him, "You've been thrown down to the earth, you who destroyed the nations of the world." Now, one reason we take these verses out of the Old Testament and we think, well, Satan used to be Lucifer, son of the morning, shining star. That's got to be Satan. He was thrown out. Is because of something Jesus said in Luke chapter 10. And we'll start to wrap this up. We won't be able to cover everything that I have for this. But in Luke chapter 10, Jesus had just sent out his disciples to the surrounding area, and they were casting out demons. People were being healed, and they came back to Jesus, and they were saying, "Yay, this is amazing. Even demons, whatever demons are, these beings that are wreaking havoc and chaos in the earth, in your name, we're able to stop them." And they're celebrating. And Jesus, in fact, it says here, the 70 returned. These are the disciples Jesus sent out. Well, Jesus' response was, "Yes, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning." He goes on and says, "Look, I've given you authority over all the power of," and here's where he calls him the enemy. That's actually what Satan means, the enemy. Is it an individual being that's around somewhere? I will say this, it's not a being that is somehow in charge of hell. And we'll talk about what hell is and if there even is a hell and what that looks like sometime in the future. But it's not a being in a red long johns with a pitchfork that is somehow controlling people in hell and torturing them and poking them with a pitchfork. But he is an enemy, or it's a force, some type of enemy, that Jesus said, "I gave you power over him." But he is saying, "I saw him fall." What I think Jesus is saying here has nothing to do with Satan being some sort of angel that was in heaven, that was Lucifer, called Lucifer before. What I think Jesus is saying is, yes, there is an enemy. He's not in the underworld. He's actually here on the earth. And in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, he uses the word heaven to describe not some place where God is, but just the atmosphere, the cosmos, the general. In fact, they use the word air. They call him the prince of the power of the air. That word air means authority, the governmental systems, the way that the world works, people that are in charge. That somehow there's an enemy working through that system, working through that government. And what Jesus was saying to his disciples is, "I saw when you guys went out, and you did what I told you to do. That power of the air, that power of an authority that this enemy is trying to cause problems in people's lives, is trying to bring sickness, is trying to bring destruction, is trying to bring war, is trying to bring all these terrible things. When you went out and you ministered and you showed the love that I have, just like I do, it multiplied who I am, and I saw Satan's power fall." And to me, that's the bottom line of everything we're saying here today is, well, is there a devil? Do I need to rebuke him? Should I be afraid that demons are in my house? What are all these things? And we'll go into more detail about various things like that in the future. But the bottom line is God's will on the earth is being opposed. But when we simply follow who Jesus is, when we believe what he says, and when we do what he says to do and duplicate his love, his compassion, his understanding that the people of this world need to know who God is, it will change their life and it will wreak havoc in the kingdom of Satan. And Paul sums it up like this, that we will take people from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. It's a little bit like Star Wars. Come over from the dark side into the kingdom of light. So I don't know if any of that made sense or helped you at all, but our time is gone for today. If you have a question, send in your question. If you have questions or pushback about this, if you're like, Mark, you don't know what you're talking about, here's what Satan is like. I'd love to hear from you. We may talk some more about this in the future. I really hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next Sunday.
All right. Oh, no. Don't worry about that. We're just going to get rid of that right there. So, yeah. Hello. I think that was pretty interesting. Do you ever think about, like, of course we talked about it beforehand, but like a lot of what Mark had to say that kind of described devils, and even he kind of like went through it really quickly. He talked about people casting out demons and performing miracles.
Yeah. It's kind of funny if you ask me. When someone experiences or, think they experience a devil or a demon, how do you go about casting them out? How do you get rid of them? How do you get back to that feeling of normalcy?
Yeah. Well, how did they do it? How did Jesus say? I remember at one point they failed and Jesus like berated them. Oh, you have little faith. Like,
absolutely.
What does it actually look like? So yeah, this is a good thing to discuss today if you're going with some friends or family to lunch, something like that, or you're just going to hang out with a life group. Talk about some of the stuff we talked about today. And of course, send in your questions. That's hugely important right now. And
definitely. And ask us anything.
Yeah.
I don't monitor the anonymous line, but send in your questions. Get try to gain as much knowledge as possible.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to ask, especially if you have questions. So,
or like Mark said, also if you have pushback, if you disagree, we want to learn too. Like that's the whole thing. And
definitely.
When has there ever been a better time to learn something new than in 2020 with the way things have been? This new lifestyle, it should be a part of our lifestyle. Speculating, asking questions, being a skeptic. I think it's an important part of life. But I've got some facts about devils I wanted to share today.
Do you?
Kind of, I guess, lighten the mood a little bit after our message. So if you find yourself this week having a moment of fear and thinking about maybe the devil's against me, here's a fact about a devil that you may not have known. Devils are carnivorous marsupials, or mammals that have a pouch when they carry their young, where they carry their young. So yeah, Tasmanian devils. That's
I love it.
Fact number one. So yeah, we're just going to reframe that picture of Satan for a minute and turn it into a cuddly monster. The Tasmanian devil is scientifically called Sarcophagus harrisi for their love for meat. In fact, that is a literal translation, or the literal translation of that is Harris's meat lover. So, yeah, next time you're worried about that devil, picture it snarfing down a Big Mac and being lazy on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
because that's what the devils are doing. That's exactly what they're doing. So yeah, send in your questions. If you have even like a concern, maybe this the reality of some of the stuff we talked about today hit home pretty hard, and you need somebody to talk to or need a resource, you can also text that same anonymous line. I think Stonebrooke.Cares.com is still running. We haven't talked about that in a little while.
True.
I also know that there's a bereavement life group that just started in our community group, which is another place to get connected. Is get on that community group, Stonebrooke, or Facebook.com/groups/StonebrookeCC, I believe. But we'll post it in the comments or something like that. You have any last minute thoughts, Trey?
just a quick question.
Yeah.
Where do you guys think? Where do you guys think demons or devils come from? Where did they originate? Now, the Bible says, well, a lot of people says they're the spirits of deceased men.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That can't be true. That can't be true. Actually, the Bible says in Psalm, Luke, and Revelation that that's absolutely false.
Untrue.
So, where do you guys think devils come from? Have you? I don't know. Have you?
Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah. Have you?
I'll be a little vulnerable here. As a kid, I had a lot of experiences that I thought were demonic. Like even still to this day, I carry some things with me because of the experiences I had.
Right.
And
I used to call that my sister, but
I probably can't get away with that. But yeah, send in your questions. What does the devil look? What is your devil? What are you dealing with? What is your adversary right now? Let's connect. Let's be community. Let's work through it. Let's learn things.
absolutely.
Right. So that's all we have for today. If you're listening to this later on in the week, thanks for taking some time out of your week to chill with us. If you're live with us right now, thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. We appreciate the comments and the reactions and things like that. Yeah, and then next week, I did want to mention we will not be having an official Stonebrooke.Live like we are this morning or like we've done every other week. We're going to take the week off. It's Thanksgiving. A lot of people are going to be traveling.
I miss you guys. I'm really going to miss you guys.
It's true.
I
We are
hate
going to miss
missing
you.
my Sundays. I really do.
Yeah, but who knows? I've been considering going live for brunch or something. So there may be something to connect with if you're
Right.
looking for connection. So, but yeah, other than that, travel safe this week. Be grateful for those chefs that are working hard for that food, and ask questions. Learn something
Do that.
new.
Absolutely. You guys be safe this holiday season, and don't forget, tip your chef.
Okay, switch back. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've got some songs. Sit back, relax, sing along, do whatever you want to. We're just here to have a good time. Shine for weeks. All I wanna do is go to bed. We'll run away in a dream. Well, I guess I could just pretend, give the image of a man at peace. Cheap made to an empty end when I really need a some relief. Help me out. Help me out. Like a statue stuck in time, I don't ever really seem to move. Maybe all of it is by design, but what's a pessimist supposed to do? Well, I guess I could just pretend, give the image of a man who's free. Feet firm on a weak defense, and when I really need some belief, help me out. Help me out. Help me out. Help me out. Tired of staring down at my feet. I've been walking in a strange direction. Wanna rise from this defeat. Am I wasting my time? Feel the wind press on my back. Been fighting most my life against it. Hear the voice inside my head saying you're no good, but I'm over it. Time to look on up.